guys, welcome back. It's Joy KahNah again. Welcome to part 2. If you happen to be stumbling upon this and you haven't already watched part 1 of this video, I do recommend watching part 1 of the video, or at least the beginning of part 1, where I provide some context. But with that said, let us continue on. Let us continue on with number 4. I was about 4 years old when this incident took place. I was very happy-go-lucky. I was sitting on the floor in our living room, and I was sort of like sneaking around a little bit because I was making a Mother's Day card, or trying to. I was trying to make a Mother's Day card for my mom, and my mom and dad were in our basement, which is our house was pretty enormous, so that's quite a bit away. I kind of gathered around some construction paper and some scissors. Wherever my scissors were, like my childhood scissors, they were too close to my parents, so I didn't want to get them because I really wanted it to be a surprise that I was making this card for my mom. So what I did is I went into my mom's sewing supplies, which were in the living room, and I took out these scissors. I will always remember they were like little sewing scissors this long, and they had orange handles at the end. I folded a piece of paper in half, like a yellow piece of paper, and I was cutting it into the shape of a heart. And yeah, like the next thing that I knew, the scissors were just like jammed into my leg. I don't know what happened. Like I said, I don't know. Like I don't know if that was like some crazy like poltergeist thing or what. The ironic thing about this is that my parents had definitely taught me like scissors can be dangerous, don't walk holding scissors and stuff like that. So I was like being very cautious. I was like holding the scissors like away from my body, cutting. I don't remember seeing like any person there or any spirits or anything. I do remember feeling the presence of something else being there in the room with me. But yeah, I just like looked down, and it was like right here. And even as like I tell this story, like I can remember what it felt like, or I can't even feel it. It was right here in my leg, and they were not in my leg a little bit. In fact, to this day, I still have a scar from where they were. They were jammed in pretty well. What I remember most is like the confusion afterwards. I sat there for a good long time with those scissors in my leg because I was trying to think, is it still like, my first thought was like, how am I gonna finish this card for my mom? And then I kind of thought, is it still worth it? Like, that might sound silly, but this is where your mind is as a kid. I was like, is it worth it to try to finish this? How am I gonna finish it? Because the heart's like only partially cut and the scissors are in my leg. I somehow knew like intuitively to not take them out or not try to take them out. I didn't know kind of what to do because I wasn't really sure. I think I sat there for 5 or 10 minutes just thinking, what am I gonna do? Like, what I did is I did try to salvage the card actually, and I cleaned up like the supplies, and I sort of like crawled over to a drawer, put them away. I finally decided to tell my parents the truth about what happened. I was trying to come up with an explanation as to like how they could have gotten there, and I think I considered telling them that I like fell onto the scissors, like that they were on the floor and I fell on them or something. But I finally decided that I would just kind of I was gonna have to go to my parents with the scissors still in my leg. It did hurt, but it didn't hurt as much as you would think. I walked really slowly, like one leg at a time, all the way to the top of the basement stairs. And then I just stood there and waited for my parents to see me. It was my dad looked up and looked like really horrified. I do remember like being at the doctor afterwards, and I remember my parents like asking like, is there something wrong like with our child? Is our child like self-harming and stuff like that? And the doctor said there's no way that she could have done this to herself. There's no way that she could have done this to herself. She doesn't have the strength. In college, my sister and I joined the Paranormal Society, and we would do investigations. And actually, I have to say, that most of what happened on the investigations was less intense than what I had experienced growing up. So it was kind of anticlimactic for the most part. But one investigation that really sticks out to me was in this old abandoned hospital. The 12th floor of this hospital was purportedly very, very haunted. In fact, it was like condemned. We had to get special permission, myself and a team of other paranormal investigators, to go up there. It basically looks like it had been abandoned, that people had left all of a sudden, because there were trays where people would keep like needles and stuff for like vaccines or surgical instruments with like the instruments still on them, gurneys. It was really weird. The floor in general was creepy. It was just very creepy. You know the feelings that you get, the cold spots, sounds of things dropping in nearby rooms even though you know nobody's there. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was with my friend, I'll call her Kay. I was with my friend Kay. We wanted to just go like sit in a room and listen, and I think we were gonna record for like potential EVPs. We actually picked the room that I would say was like least scary. It was like by a whole bunch of windows, and it was just like a small, looked like a small like examination room or a single patient room or something like that. There was some sort of mattress thing that had fallen on the floor. So we were sitting on it, we were just looking at each other, and we were like just kind of trying to tune in. We were like closing our eyes. We were trying to be totally quiet so we could hear anything, because we both felt like a female presence in the room that felt really benevolent actually, and just felt really kind. I even thought that maybe it was a maternity nurse. That's kind of how it seemed to me, or the energy, how the energy of the person seemed to me. She was sitting right next to me right here. And we looked down at the EVP that was sitting in front of us, and at some point I felt a presence behind me, like a very strong presence behind me, like almost like somebody touching my shoulder or something. I looked back, and on the mat right behind us were 2 footprints. Two like very, very clear indentations of shoes standing so close behind us, 2 inches behind us or so. We just looked at each other, just absolutely stunned. Those footprints definitely had not been there. Like, we were wearing headlamps when we sat down, we looked at the mat, like they definitely had not been there. So it was clear that there was, as a matter of fact, a spirit standing right behind us. I was 19 or 20, and I was in Arco, Idaho, which is this small town in Idaho of about 1,000 people or less. And I was there because at the time, my family owned a KOA campground called Craters of the Moon, KOA. Google that if you're interested. It was such a small town that we couldn't even get supplies really that we needed there, and so we had to drive like 100 miles to get supplies at like any Walmart or Target or any store like that. I was driving with my sister to go get some supplies, and we were driving down this stretch of road that is, yeah, like 100 miles, and there's literally, I know this can be hard to believe for people that live in metropolitan areas, but there are some very rural parts in the West, and this road didn't have any exits or anything on it for at least 40 or 50 miles. So it's just this empty stretch, just desert really. In the distance there's some mountains, but it's pretty much just dry desert. I shall mention for context that Arco, Idaho is the town that's closest to this place called the Idaho National Laboratory, which everybody there would call the INL. I believe that the INL is where cloning technologies were developed, supposedly. Experimental sheep breeding, I think is what they called it, the experimental sheep breeding area. Basically, it's a huge underground laboratory. Almost everybody who lived in the town worked at the laboratory, and I used to work at a sandwich shop there during the summers, and I used to try to get anybody to tell me what they did at the laboratory. I kind of made a joke of it, like, what do you do at the laboratory? What do you do at the laboratory? And just nobody would tell me. Like, people would sometimes laugh or smile, and I asked them, but nobody would tell me. They were like, we cannot disclose what we do at the laboratory. We were driving down the road, and we saw a person standing on the side of the road. We're driving this way, it was this side of the road. And it was very weird to see a person because we've been driving for about 20 miles. There shouldn't be any pedestrians there because there's not like a walking path or anything. It's just a roadway and just desert for miles and miles and miles. And what really stood out to me, and the reason why I will never forget this, is because it was a man and he was wearing only underwear. And they were whitey-tighty underwear. I don't know what the proper name is. This guy wearing these briefs, like these white brief underwear, which I don't think I'd ever seen that, you know, before. And just, he was like just standing facing the roadway. He did not have his thumb up or anything for hitchhiking. He was just standing facing the roadway, like looking up like this. We both kind of like laughed or giggled at this guy, and we were kind of afraid, like a little bit. I mean, obviously he wasn't, we were going so fast, by the way, like obviously he wasn't going to be able to get into our car or something, but we were just kind of scared at seeing somebody, and we felt kind of bad. What if he's in danger or something? You know, it's so hot here, it's desert, and he's just in his underwear. As we approached him, right as we passed, he disappeared. He disappeared. This was a man, like a physical man, just like you and me, and he disappeared. We watched him disappear. It was weird. I don't even know what to describe it as. I just can't even describe it, but he was just there and then he was just gone, just like blipped out. We slowed down on the side of the road and stopped because again, there's like no car. Literally nobody drives this road, I swear, except us. I think all the traffic was occurring in the underground. Like, there was like buses and stuff that went in the underground into the laboratory, but on the surface, nobody drove. And just to be sure, like we stopped, like opened our car doors, look around, like look for this guy. Where is this guy? Look all over. And he was just gone. He was just completely gone. And we just drove on in a little bit of a daze. Our whole lives had been pretty paranormal, but that's one of the weirdest incidents. I mean, they're all weird, but like that's one of the ones where it's just like, wow, what? High strangeness. So, yeah, guys, this is the end of part 2. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, come back soon to check out part 3.